Hey guys, it's Neil and Greg here from Zippy, and we've got a wonderful guest today, and Jared from One Source Refreshments. Jared, thank you for coming in here and spending a couple of minutes with us.
Thanks for having me, Neil, Greg. Good to see you guys.
So Jared, tell us a little bit about you, and you've got a great reputation around technology in our industry, but just tell us a little bit about you and your role at the company and how long you've been in the industry.
Well, right now, my technical title is Vice President of Operations. I've been with One Source Office Refreshments, which we're outside of Philadelphia, as you can tell my posters behind here. One Source Office Refreshments, we've got about 25 routes, vending, office coffee, micro markets, pantry, pretty much everything in our unattended retail. I've been full-time with the company since I graduated college in 2007, and I started as a route jumper, evolutionized into a route manager, took over the deployment of technology when we deployed Cantaloupe company-wide, and now I pretty much spearhead any adoption of new technologies within the company, whether that's a new device, a new kiosk, new smart coolers, or, ZippyAssist.
Well, it's funny how you came into our wheelhouse, because obviously we've had a long-time relationship with Vending Central and web design, but we called Bob and we rolled up Zippy to Bob, and Bob said no. And he gave us some good reasons why, which are traditional reasons. What we hear is we're out selling Zippy, but it wasn't till you came along about 7 or 8 months later and said, hey, why haven't you shown this to us? This looks very interesting.
I think that stemmed from someone told me, and I honestly think it was a nod. And he said, Jared, I need you to stop and think about how our industry talks to the end customer. Mm-hmm. And, for us, we're always so client focused. Who's the contact at that location? And he just told me, he said, we're looking at this a lot differently, where you're touching the end consumer, which is something we've never done in our industry. And then it's light bulb and spurred from there. And I just wanted to hear more about where you guys wanted to go with it.
Now, let me roll into that, because that was a good segue. So Greg's role at Zippy is the CEO, and he's the lead product designer. We've only got a small team. There's Greg, there's Josh, our developer, and Zach, our onboarder, quality control, train all the customers. But Greg, we had a wonderful conversation a couple of months ago about how the dashboard evolved. And just from a design point of view, how did you put all this energy into coming up with what we've got right now?
We didn't even have a dashboard. There was literally no dashboard. What we were interested in was figuring out how can we better look after the consumer or the customer that's on the other side of the glass when something goes wrong, right? Because we know that 99 times out of 100, everything is fine. And a customer doesn't really have to think about anything else. Then we felt if we could figure that out, we could just extrapolate to a dashboard to provide the value of the data that we're getting from consumers to operators. So yeah, at the very beginning, there was no dashboard.
I've never been involved from a technology standpoint before, right? But to build really good technology, we as an organization have got to be open up to our customers who live in this dashboard, right? To be able to build out a future roadmap to make it even better, because that's the goal. We want this tool to be the most amazing customer service tool.
Yeah, and it really does start from the customer, because if they don't want to use it, it's not going to be used to anyone.
Yeah.
So, we spend a lot of time just figuring out what an optimal type of experience might be for a consumer, and then we let that dictate all the decisions from there. So, for example, when we first started, you were looking at what people were doing, and we're saying, how does it make a customer feel to use this? So a typical example might be you scan a QR code, and you've got this web form of like 20 questions, and it's asking stuff like, whereabouts are you? All that sort of stuff. And, a lot of people don't even know where they are. They just know that they're in a hospital on the 4th floor visiting grandma, and now I'm dealing with this. So what we try to do is go, what can we make the most optimal experience for the customer? Obviously having to make a few trade-offs on the way through, And then once we could figure that out, then we knew that we could get them to use it, and we could get them to use it again and again if they wanted to give feedback or engage with the operator, earn their trust. Hey, look, this is an experience that, hey, this is quite different from what I'm used to. Building trust with the operator so that you can then get additional information from you that is valuable to you. Like, for example, what products do you want? How can we help you to spend more money at our machines? So
Yes.
that was the approach. And once we had that, then we felt we could build the dashboard on the back of that experience. But
Yeah.
there's no point in doing that if you're not getting data from the consumer.
With that being said, Jared, rubber meets the road. You are, like you said earlier, an organization with about 26 trucks going out across thousands of vending machines and micro markets. You're in the hot seat. How's the dashboard and Zippy working for you?
So for us, we use Zippy so many different ways. And I think we were one of the early customers. I don't know what customer number we were, but I think we were in the first 10 that
Yep.
came on board. And, it's an evolution, much like Greg said, on how we use it. We started as, okay, this is how we're going to pay back refunds, because refunds were always a problem within our organization. We had unaccounted for refund banks that went to contacts that really didn't feel like dealing with it. And if they did, they gave back refunds for every credit card transaction, every pre-auth that was ever given out. And for some reason, $5, $10, $15 was disappearing nonstop. And in reality, as an operator, we have checks and balances that we can reconcile those charges as long as we're dealing with the end consumer. So even just starting with refunds, and we've evolved our processes here on how we handle it. Now, internally, I have someone that looks over every credit card transaction, gets it verified, and we know we're paying out refunds for people that were actually charged. Refunds went out to people that were not charged all the time. Any machine that had guaranteed product delivery, it put a hold on their card, but then it reversed it. So they'd see that pending charge, they'd get the product, or they wouldn't get the product or not be charged. And then I gave them an extra $250 because it was on there. So refunds was where it started. And honestly, the ease of giving a customer a refund via Venmo, PayPal, whatever it is, that gives them that added, hey, I was able to get instant feedback. Hey, these people will take care of me. If I have a problem, I know what to do and I know how to get resolution. So I think that part's been good. And then the other piece that I would say is taking that refund bag back off the street. Normally, we were given between $25 and $37 out, somewhere in that realm to our larger clients. We pulled every refund bank back except for places that don't allow phones or senior centers. So that's all that we have left. And even at some of those, we've worked out deals where someone's in charge to go issue the refunds, but they give us a Zippy request so we can log and track who it was. So we've even gotten partners within facilities, which is cool.
Cool.
So that's phase one. Two became, how do we manage service within Zippy? So now I would say if you include Zippy Voice, about 80 to 85% of our service calls come directly through Zippy. Our route drivers put all their service calls through Zippy, where they used to have to text the service line. So they all know how to use it. And once you get the autofill population, it's very simple. And look, route drivers always resist change. But once we got them to do it, they're able to give us photos, which give the technicians more insight into what's actually occurring. So our service calls have gotten much, much better. And, we have internal rules, like if a Zippy comes in for this, is it just a refund, or does it bring up a service call that we're going to dispatch to a technician, or is it something that a driver can handle? So we've laid that foundation and evolved as Zippy has evolved. And then my last piece I would say is, we look at it from an account management standpoint too. We have all those service calls in Zippy or in our, our VMS, but then we also have a log of refunds we've paid out in Zippy. So our account managers utilize the dashboard, utilize the customer list, how many times there's been refunds given out at each place. And we look at that both account-based and then, as a whole. And I actually have my Zippy dashboard pulled up right now, and I was looking at January, and, we have 880 help requests in the month of January. And that might seem completely crazy, but we've got over 3,000 machines, well over 100 micro markets, and all service calls are coming through this. And most of these are refunds that we're just instantly paying the customer and the problem goes away.
Yeah.
Where before it might have been a service call, but we have a photo, we have a credit card transaction, we have a receipt of what happened. So, we use Zippy in a lot of different places, but it's evolved over time.
So awesome to hear that 85% of your people coming through are in Zippy. So, Jared, now that you've been in this program for a couple of years now, one of the things that we got branded early was a refund tool. And everyone thought their refunds were going to go through the roof. So if you could just answer that's not how it is, right? I tell everyone nowadays we're a full service communication platform, of which refunds is just a part of it, and you're going to get full accountability around refunds now.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you just by looking at our dashboard, how many are refunds, how many are product requests, feedback. Refunds are a part of it for sure. And what it allowed us to do is get a better grasp of our refunds. I don't think that if you were an operator before, you had a good measure of what your refunds were. Look, we are, as a Cantaloupe operator, our drivers were instructed to input every refund. Our technicians were instructed to, and they didn't. And we know they didn't. And our account managers that went out with new refund banks, they weren't tracked properly. This allows us to track literally month after month how many refunds were paid out electronically. And it also allows us to look at how many were requested and how many were actually needed to be paid out. That number is under 50% for us regularly, and sometimes under 40% of what is requested, and then what is deemed actually an appropriate refund. So I don't think refunds have been astronomical. I mean, looking at what I have here in January, and I'll be quite frank, we had 880 requests. Only 290 of those were refunds. So what was that, 25, 30% off the top of my head. Yeah. And then of that, we only paid out about 140 refunds in the whole month.
Yeah.
So, it allows us to see better what's going on. It allows us to understand what those transactions are. And it also allows us to understand where customers are struggling. Yeah. When they're requesting a refund, it's because they don't understand something. So maybe we have to fix the UI on the card reader. Maybe the machine messaging is poor. It makes you look inside about what the customer is experiencing rather than just, they want a refund. So it made us take a hard look on how we're doing a lot of things. But yeah, refunds are a part, but not the whole thing at all.
Yep. Oh, that's amazing to hear. And it is true, right? Within a refund could be 10 different things going on. And, that was cool. That's some high tech. We were talking to the guys at Monumental Refreshments up in DC, 1,500 micro markets. And every morning they have a meeting, a stand up to chat about the business. And the first thing they bring up is the Zippy dashboard. And they just make sure that all management is on top of what things are flowing. And is there anything outstanding that we need to get on right now? But the Zippy dashboard just rolls it all up for them. Are you guys in the same way? So you just mentioned in service meetings?
So we have our every 2 weeks we have a service meeting with my dispatcher, it's in-house prep team, and then my service manager. And we go over all different things. And Zippy is a big, big piece of that. But then we also have our all hands call on Monday that we go over. And just like Craig at Monumental, I've actually been a part of his calls. And I learned kind of how he does things.
Yes.
But yeah, so we do it. We do it on a Monday morning, and it's our kickoff call. And we look at who called in empty last week, what were repeat service calls, who's putting the fire out, and then who's actionable this week to make sure that things are still going well. So no, very similar as far as how that's set up. We've started to develop different KPIs within the Zippy dashboard. So we look at refund requests compared to refund paid. And then we look at that month over month, and then how many help requests month over month. And then we have like a trailing 12 months that we're looking at just to make sure there's no big trends. And then in our service meetings, we go to the equipment file and look at help requests and see if those numbers for issues with the machines are a little different than what we're seeing in our VMS, because sometimes there are.
From a retention standpoint, right, the last thing we want in our industry is to get that service call or to get that call and say, hey guys, thanks for the last 2 years. We really appreciate it, but we're bringing someone else in because of service. And half the time, no one even knew, right, that there was even a problem. So that's the cool thing about Zippy too, right, is now you want to get more calls so then you can take care of them.
So I have a specific example. It actually happened last week. We're a relatively large micro market customers. Just, one of the standard employees called in and said, hey, your food's been pretty empty recently. Send it through as just a help request. And my account manager contacted that person directly, but then decided to take it one step further and went directly to our client and said, hey, I wanted to let you know that Darren reached out. He said that he was a little unhappy with the food. I wanted to let you know we had a production issue with our salads. They haven't come in the last 2 weeks. and we had a lot of spoilage and a little bit of shrink that was involved here. So the issues should be corrected. All we got was, hey, thank you so much. Glad you're on top of it. I don't have to worry about it. So it allows you to be proactive in that respect. I think sometimes, operators, even our size, they look at it and they're like, maybe I don't want to hear the bad stuff, but you really do. Yeah. And it's just going to make you better. And the more you can get ahead of it, the better chance you have of that retention.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's one thing that I think when we talk to people about Zippy is, they get a little bit worried about, what don't we know, and really, do we really want to know all of the wrinkles that are in our organization? But the reality is that they really do, the benefits that come out of knowing that. Like one of my favorite stories involves you actually, Jared, when we saw a request come in, and this was someone that had some feedback. I think it was on a product selection, and they just said, hey, it would be great if you could range this in this piece of equipment. And I remember you going back and saying, yeah, we should be able to do that. And you did it. And then you sent out a feedback to that customer and they gave you a great score. So, I think when you are able to identify the issues that are actually causing real customers real problems, then you can start to prioritize the things that you need to fix. And then what will happen is over time, you just got less issues to fix, right? Because what you want to do is that stuff is happening out there. It's happening out there. You're shut off to it if you don't have something like Zippy. What Zippy allows you to do is you just want to hear from those customers that are actually having real issues, get those fixed. And then over time, the issues start to drop down. Now, you talked about your January number, and that looked like it's a large number, but you're a large organization. And I just imagine that Zippy really helps you to be able to manage that amount of inquiry. First of all, because, you're using pre-auth, which means a lot of your refund requests are actually all just self-healing anyway. You don't have to communicate customers around that. But it does mean that you can then start to prioritize and look at all the other stuff and get more efficient about dealing with it.
We even discontinued certain items because they've been so often referenced in jams. Even though we felt like we tested them well, maybe our drivers were not filling them perfectly like we expected every time. This happened with some of the larger products such as XBL. We had to discontinue certain sized products because it just wasn't functioning, and they were coming up on our jams list literally every month. So yeah, there's things that we learned from this without, we never really expected.
And just like in any relationship, right, you want to hear both sides. The last thing you want is that one side to not communicate and be silent. Because then...
Yeah, and look, the getting the feedback part that Greg mentioned is super important too. I mean, we're in an unintended world where getting direct feedback and Google reviews are super huge in our industry, and it's very hard to get them because we're not present very often. We're not out there asking for them. So any ways that we can contribute to our web presence is huge. And, Neil, you and I, from our initial start with Vend Central, we're always pressing for Google reviews. We're always pressing to show up higher on those AI rankings. So the more we can do to have that presence out there, the better.
Yeah. And I just want to this is a great opportunity for us to give a little bit of a feature plug actually in Zippy. And that is our automated feedback flow. So for example, what happens, and I know you guys use this a lot and I can see it because of the scores that are coming through, and because one of the issues is that people are very quick to criticize, very slow to praise. And what we often do is especially with Zippy, is that you're actually setting up a whole system to keep customers happy. Requests come in, you address those requests, is that, we have our feedback feature, what then goes out to the customer and says, understand you reached out for help. How did it go? And they can give you a feedback score. What you'll often find is those feedback scores are really high because, a lot of customers don't even think that you're going to do anything. The fact that you actually solve it is quite it's amazing these days, especially with unattended retail. So those scores and those reviews, they're there for the taking if you are responding to customers. And so that's why we basically built that feature. And again, going back to the dashboard, the dashboard evolved around those types of features. We knew that if we could go back out to customers after they've received help and the help request has been closed, that we could get a good review. So, we built the feedback feature around that. Same thing with voice messages. I mean, when you look at the dashboard today, I would think probably almost all of it is from operator feedback. Hey, we want to be able to see this. We want to be able to see that. We want to be able to look at this report. We want to be able to. Voice messages is a great example. Someone said to us, hey, do you think we could, if you were able to take care of our voice messages, we could move away from our call center, have everything go into Zippy, because that's where we're dealing with it anyway. We were using a call center. They basically are just a, glorified, answering service. They would send us an email. We would take that email and put it into Zippy. So, the whole voice messages feature in Zippy is really from a request that came from an operator. We just want to move away from using a call center. We want everything to go into Zippy where we can manage it. So it's been organic, but it's been organic based upon the feedback and the input that we're getting directly from operators.
Yeah, voice messages is something that we get a fair amount of. I mean, it was more than I expected. So you guys opened my eyes. I'm like, wow. So I think it's something like 15% to 20% of ours come through voice still, which is good that they have options and ways to communicate with us. Because some people, I mean, look, text is by far preferred, but some people still do like to call. And it gives them that opportunity, and we can still respond to them the same way, right to the same phone number. So it allows that same type of interaction.
Yep. That's one of my favorite, I got many favorite features, but one of the features where we've been pulling back work is people will come in the morning and normally they would sit at their phone for maybe 25 to 40 minutes writing down the voicemails that came in overnight. So the fact that now they can go directly into the Zippy dashboard, all typed up, ready to be actionable. That's a 30-minute savings of someone's time just in that one feature.
And we changed our policies and procedures in here where before we were just accepting everything and creating service calls or paying back a refund. We respond to almost every Zippy message via email just to make sure there's that feedback going back from us so that they're getting some information.
Hey, well, guys, Jared, we appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming in here because you are a wonderful supporter of us, and this tool is only going to get better. So thank you.
Keep coming up with cool stuff. It makes it fun.
Exactly. Yep. Thanks, Jared.
Good to see you guys.